Shalom, shalom, Yasharala. It's your brother Mashayak coming at y'all with a edifying video through the power and spirit of Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahushai, Bahashim Okakwadash. So in today's lesson, I want to go into why are there ghettos in every state in the U.S. And like always, I'm going to read through it. And I've got a precept going into Deuteronomy chapter 28, going through the list of curses that we'll go through from breaking the law, statutes, and commandments of the Heavenly Father. So for number one, it says, excuse me, right when I start the video, now I feel something stuck in my throat, but we're gonna push on. We're gonna let Satan hinder the word. So number one, it says history of segregation and racism. It says after slavery ended, many Black Americans moved to cities during the Great Migration, 1910s to the to the 1970s, looking for work and safety. They were often forced into specific neighborhoods due to housing discrimination, redlining, and racist laws. These areas became underfunded and overcrowded. Immigrant groups, Italians, Irish, Latinos, etc. also faced this at different times, but Black, so-called Black, and so-called Latino communities were hit hardest and for longer. And that goes into Deuteronomy chapter 28, going into the curses, how it says that these two specific groups were hit the hardest, because it also lists Italians and Irish, just showing you that the curses is going to follow us wherever we go because of our disobedience. Number two says redlining and housing policies. It says in the 1930s to 1960s, the federal government and banks denied loans and investment to neighborhoods where mostly minorities lived. This is called redlining. That meant these areas couldn't build wealth while white suburbs grew richer. Number three, poverty cycles. It says once an area is disinvested in bad schools, fewer jobs, poor housing, poverty becomes generational. People born there often face fewer opportunities to escape, so the cycle continues. Number four, economic shifts. When industries shut down or moved overseas, urban working class jobs disappeared. Many middle class families moved out, but poorer families were stuck, concentrating poverty in certain areas. Number five, policing criminalization. It says heavier policing, mass incarceration, and the war on drugs hit these neighborhoods hard because it was manufactured and planned by the damn devil for that to happen. That precept, for we are not ignorant of Satan's devices. It says heavier policing, mass incarceration, and the war on drugs hit these neighborhoods hard. That made it even harder for residents to get jobs, housing, or upward mobility. Number six, cost of living and displacement. In big cities, gentrification pushes low-income families into smaller, overlooked areas. In rural and suburban states, poverty clusters in small towns or inner city pockets, which function like ghettos. It says, in short, ghettos exist in every state because structural racism, discriminatory policies, and economic inequality have been nationwide problems, not just in certain cities. And then I asked ChatGPT, why is it mainly Black and Latino communities that are affected? Because literally in every single state, you're going to see a ghetto, the hood. And who do you see there? Mostly our people, so-called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans too. But usually GAD is on reservations and things like that, which you could call ghettos too. But it says number 1, slavery and its aftermath for Black Americans. It says enslaved Africans and their descendants were denied land, education, and wealth for centuries. After emancipation, Jim Crow laws and violent racism kept Black families from owning property or moving freely. When the U.S. built its middle class in the 20th century through home ownership, Social Security, the GI Bill, Black people were largely excluded. Number 2, immigration and racial barriers for Latinos and others. Many Latino communities came to the U.S. as immigrants or migrant workers, often doing low-wage labor with limited protections. They faced housing discrimination, language barriers, and racism that restricted where they could live. Mexican Americans in the Southwest, Puerto Ricans in New York, and other Latino groups were pushed into specific neighborhoods, much like Black Americans. Number 3, redlining and housing segregation. Banks and the government systematically denied loans to neighborhoods with Black or Latino residents, 1930s to the 60s. White families could move to the suburbs while minorities were trapped in underfunded neighborhoods. This is one of the main reasons Black and Latino families hold far less generational wealth than white families today. All going back to the curses. Number 4, unequal education and job access. It says schools in minority neighborhoods were historically underfunded and still are, since schools are tied to local property taxes. This creates a cycle: lower education, fewer job opportunities, lower income, continued concentration of poverty. Number 5, discrimination and policing. I keep saying policing. I mean policing. Discrimination in policing and work. It says Black and Latino communities have faced higher policing, mass incarceration, and job discrimination. Criminal records or racial bias in hiring made it much harder to escape poverty, even for hardworking families. And number 6, structural racism across generations. Even when opportunities open up, starting with less wealth, worse schools, and systematic barriers, make it much harder for Black and Latino families to catch up compared to white families. And also, going to this one too. I says, does it affect so-called Native Americans as well? And it says, historical displacement. Native Americans were forcibly removed from their lands for centuries through wars, unkept treaties. And I put the unkept because Esau didn't keep none of the treaties that he made with Gad and Reuben. And it says in programs like the Trail of Tears, many were moved to reservations, often on land that was less fertile, remote, or economically disadvantaged. Number 2, economic isolation. It says many reservations are geographically isolated, which limits access to jobs, education, healthcare, and infrastructure. Poverty rates on reservations are often extremely high, sometimes 3 to 4 times the national average. Number 3, federal policies and underfunding. It says historically, the U.S. government has underfunded schools, hospitals, and housing on reservations. Bureaucratic hurdles with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, BIA, and tribal governance make economic development challenging. Number 4, health and social challenges. Native American communities face higher rates of chronic illness, addiction, and mental health challenges, often linked to historical trauma and under-resourced systems. These social factors make it harder to break cycles of poverty. And number 5, cultural and legal factors. It says tribal sovereignty means that some tribes manage their own lands and governments, but limited resources often make it hard to build wealth or attract businesses. Unlike Black and Latino communities in cities, Native Americans are often rural, so the ghetto model looks different. It's concentrated poverty, but in reservation towns rather than urban neighborhoods. But at the end of the day, all tribes is going through the same thing, dealing with the curses. And the precept, I'm going to read this whole chapter. I'm going to read from Deuteronomy chapter 28, 16 through 68. So it says, "Cursed shalt thou be in the city, and cursed shalt thou be in the field. Cursed shall be thy basket and thy store. Cursed shall be the fruit of thy body and the fruit of thy land, the increase of thy kin and the flocks of thy sheep. Cursed shalt thou be when thou comest in, and cursed shalt thou be when thou goest out. Yahweh shall send upon thee cursing, vexation, and rebuke, and all that thou settlest thine hand onto for to do, until thou be destroyed, and until thou perish quickly, because of the wickedness of thy doings, whereby thou hast forsaken me." And I'm actually not gonna read this whole thing because I already know y'all brothers and sisters got the gist of what I'm going into in this lesson. But I'm gonna read to verse 30. It says, "Yahweh shall make the pestilence cleave unto thee, until he have consumed thee from off the land whither thou goest to possess it. Yahweh shall smite thee with a consumption, and with a fever, and with an inflammation, and with an extreme burning, and with the sword, and with blasting, and with mildew, and they shall pursue thee until thou perish. And thy heaven that is over thy head shall be brass, and the earth that is under thee shall be iron. Yahweh shall make the rain of thy land powder and dust. From heaven shall it come down upon thee until thou be destroyed. Yahweh shall cause thee to be smitten before thine enemies. Thou shalt go out one way against them, and flee 7 ways before them, and shall be removed into all the kingdoms of the earth. And thy carcass shall be meat unto all fowls of the air, and unto the beasts of the earth, and no man shall fray them away. Yahweh will smite thee with the botch of Egypt, and with the emerods, and with the scab, and with the itch, whereof thou canst not be healed. Yahweh shall smite thee with madness, and blindness, and astonishment of heart. And thou shalt grope at noonday, as the blind gropeth in darkness." "And thou shalt not prosper in thy ways, and thou shalt be only oppressed and spoiled evermore, and no man shall save thee. Thou shalt betroth a wife, and another man shall lie with her, and thou shalt build an house, and thou shalt not dwell therein. Thou shalt plant a vineyard, and shalt not gather the grapes thereof." And with that, Yasharallah, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushua, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Shalom, shalom.